I am live. Welcome everybody to my first live stream. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I know very little about what I'm doing, I guess. But I have my coffee, well, actually my tea, and I have conversation, and I have some teaching and some stories today. Instead of doing a story on an intimate partner homicide event that happened, we're going to actually look at a couple of different recent police reports on strangulation that has occurred that I was able to find pretty easily, because it happens way more frequently than is a good thing, obviously. And I'm sure a whole lot more than what there are police reports for, unfortunately. So I figured I would give a few minutes in case other people will show up, and then we'll get started. I'm not entirely sure what to do while there's nobody here. I can apologize ahead of time because I pause when I talk a whole lot more naturally than what I do in the YouTube videos, because we're able to cut a lot of that out. Like, I didn't realize that I'm kind of podunk talky, I guess. I don't know. I'm more laid back than what is helpful for YouTube. So we try to move that along a little bit. So I'm kind of laid back and chill, especially when I have tea or coffee and I'm just hanging out. So I apologize for that in advance. Yeah, I don't know. I cut my hair. I didn't want to go into surgery. Well, I didn't know what to expect when I got out of surgery, so I figured it would be easier to have shorter hair and less to take care of, which, meh. Surgery in some ways was easier to get over than I thought that it was going to be, and in other ways, it's still not. I don't know. I don't sit still really well, and so, like, I have to lay down and nap pretty much every day since surgery. Obviously, right out of surgery, I slept a lot more, but I still have to. And I wouldn't have expected that this far along. I mean, you get told major surgery is supposed to be 4 to 6 weeks of recovery, but I'm Superwoman. So I didn't think that I was going to have to deal with that. I thought that I could be tougher or something. But, no major complications, so that's good. I'm grateful, super grateful. It could have been a lot worse, I guess. Hi, Donna. Yay. I'm so glad to see you. I don't think I've heard from you in a little while. I got to remember to talk to the camera and not the chat box, because you're not going to really, I'm not looking at you in the chat box. See if I can move my light a little bit so that I can see the chat box better. I'm glad to be here. I have no experience with live streaming at all, so you get to be here on my initial run. We'll see how it goes. You can tell me if I royally screw it up or not later. It's a lot less intimidating when you can edit stuff out. But I was saying, I talk, like, I pause in between talking a lot more than what I put on YouTube, because apparently I'm like a mosey along talker, so I'm not that fast. But and I was just kind of updating on surgery. Like, it went pretty well. I guess there was a code blue while I was in surgery, and so my daughter was freaking out, and the hospital called them and let them know that it wasn't me, and that was good. But I imagine that was fairly traumatic for her, because I was in longer than I was supposed to be. Awesome. Thank you. That's good to know. What have you been up to? Let's see. I don't remember the last time I talked to you. I don't know if I've talked to you yet in 2020. Did you have a good New Year's? Mine has been spent, I don't know, I'm supposed to be resting, but that's not really happening. It's just different. She is 16. So I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. Awesome. I'm glad. I was in the hospital on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and so it'll go down in history for me as one of the more eventful New Year's in a not great way. But I guess I can go ahead and start. Because this is the first, yeah, we did Sweet 16 a couple of months ago, and I was trying to look for like a cool thing to do for her because she does a lot, and she's a super wonderful person. And I was trying to think of some really cool way that I could really do it for her and surprise her. So I was able to achieve it, and we did a blacklight, like neon themed birthday party, and she didn't know anything about it until she walked in. It was pretty cool. So since this is my first live stream, I don't have like the cool tools yet. If we end up liking doing this once a month or maybe even more frequently, then I'll invest in doing some of the cool things so that I can screen share and stuff, but I just printed off for today. But I was looking through criminal reports because I was looking for other stuff, and I was noticing how many times there were domestic assaults with strangulation in particular. So I went back and printed off just from in this area from December 21st through yesterday. And I figured I'd just work backwards. So on January 24th of this year at 12:45 a.m., officers were dispatched regarding a domestic disturbance. And it's really interesting to me. I'm sure it depends on the officer. Some of them actually like document a lot, and others you will see document almost nothing, which is extremely not helpful. Officers contacted Metcalf and Doyle, who live together and have a child in common. The investigation revealed that Metcalf and Doyle were involved in an altercation where Metcalf grabbed Doyle by her neck, causing her normal breathing to be impeded by the pressure of Metcalf grabbing her neck. She also had injuries consistent with strangulation. Also, Metcalf threatened Doyle that he was going to get a gun and kill her, which caused terror in Doyle that Metcalf was going to follow through due to the fact that Metcalf has access to guns. Doyle also received a small scratch to her face during the altercation. This altercation occurred while Doyle was holding their 3-month-old child. Metcalf was arrested for strangulation, terroristic threats, domestic assault in the 3rd degree, and negligent child abuse. I find it really entertaining in a dumb kind of way that they have to say things like causing her normal breathing to be impeded and causing terror, because who's not going to have terror caused to them if somebody that you know can kill you and obviously was just trying to is threatening to kill you. Like, to me, that seems really obvious, but for legal purposes, they have to do that. So you have all of this information. And then the next one on January 10th says, Ada advised that she was assaulted and strangled by an intimate partner, which resulted in injuries. Case is open. That's it. How would that be helpful for building any kind of a case for Ada at all? Like, I don't know. This is news media reports that they put out daily, so I don't know if there are things that they don't say for the media that they are saying, that they keep within, especially where it says case is open. And other times they'll say what specifically they're being charged with. So I don't know if while the case is open, they can't share more. But another one, January 7th, at 11:21 at night, officers responded for the report of a disturbance. It was advised that Garcia had thrown his girlfriend to the ground several times. It was said that while she was on the ground, he struck her in the face, used one hand to strangle her to the point where she could not breathe, and he was arrested for domestic assault, 3rd degree, and strangulation. On December 27th at 11:10 p.m. And I think it's interesting to note too when these things happen, because nighttime seems to be worse. It's not always the case, but couples fight more at night, it seems like. So the 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the morning range is super common. Let's see. They responded to a reported domestic disturbance. On scene, contact was made with Rachel. Rachel had visible red abrasions on her neck and a bloody nose. Rachel advised that her boyfriend and intimate partner Melvin had just struck her across the face with an open hand, causing physical pain and her nose to bleed. Rachel also reported that Melvin had wrapped his hands around her neck, which impeded her breathing during the altercation. Lastly, Rachel advised that she was unable to leave the apartment while officers were knocking at the door because Melvin was physically restraining her. Melvin was arrested for strangulation, domestic assault 3rd degree, with prior and false imprisonment in the 1st degree. I got 2 more. On December 23rd, Shelby reported that her boyfriend Dylan choked her with his hands. Shelby had signs of injury on her neck caused by Dylan. Dylan admitted that they were fighting in their bathroom. When Dylan was placed under arrest, a glass pipe was found in his coat. Dylan and Shelby have been in a relationship for years and have a child. Dylan was arrested for domestic assault, strangulation, and possession of drug paraphernalia. The reason that I wanted to include these today is that we always talk about the stories after the women have been murdered, but there's so many. I mean, there's tons of those. And then there's so many more that are on their way there that may or may not know that they're on their way there, or may not reach out for help when they're on their way there. And I would like to be able to get to them. I would like to be able to tell them, strangulation is dangerous, super dangerous. It's like the last step before death. You know, whether they die from strangulation or they die from something else, they will die at the hands of the person that is willing to strangle them. It's extremely serious. And I don't want these women or men to die, but I'm choosing women in these cases. This last one, Donna, I think that you will be particularly interested in. It's just like, are you serious? Like, it's one of those situations. On December 21st, officers responded to a report of a domestic disturbance. Female reports Miguel assaulted her by striking her numerous times in the face and body, biting her, and strangled her to cause her to be unable to breathe. Numerous visible injuries were observed on the female. The female and Miguel have a child in common. The child was present during the assault. Miguel took the child and left prior to officers' arrival. Miguel was located and a traffic stop was attempted. He fled from officers while running a traffic light, traveling at speeds in excess of 87 miles an hour and crossing into oncoming traffic. Officers discontinued the pursuit of the vehicle. Miguel was located by State Patrol after being involved in an accident. No surprise there. Miguel used the child as a shield, did not listen to officers' commands to show his hands, and was observed not wearing a seatbelt. The child was also observed to be not in proper restraint system, which, I mean, you can understand when they're in the middle of fleeing a crime that they're not going to take the time to properly buckle this child in, that they're totally okay with using as a human shield later. Miguel's taking of the child knowingly and intentionally exposed the child to the risk of serious bodily injury. A record check of Miguel showed a prior conviction for domestic assault and no operator's license. Miguel has also been served with a protection order from this particular female. He was located and arrested by State Patrol. Miguel is being referred for kidnapping, strangulation, 3rd degree domestic assault with a prior, false imprisonment, 1st degree, child abuse, willful flight to avoid protection order violation, obstruction, no operator's license, no seatbelt, and child restraint violation. Yeah, that's what I thought that you would find that interesting. I was like, So, that case brings to mind a couple of different things, a lot of different things, but one of them being that just the person being abused is not the only person in harm's way. Whether that child had been abused before that time or not, they were always in danger. If this person was willing to abuse their significant other, they're willing to hurt other people, particularly children. But then you have people that go in and shoot their significant other, and they shoot whoever's with them or around them, depending on the situation. Or the guy recently that ran his wife over at the bank, like, he wasn't concerned about who else might have been hit when he killed his wife, when he ran her over with their car. They're not concerned with the safety of the people around them. So when I left my ex-husband, I didn't do it for me. I ended up doing it for my kids, because I was in such a place where I couldn't do something like that for myself. I didn't feel like I was worthy or deserving of safety and love and things that are good, but my kids were. And so if that's what people need to take and run with to be able to get away, do it, because it's legitimate. And then another thing to consider as far as this case is concerned is, do you think that a protection order is going to be helpful with him? I do not, in any way. For some people, protection orders can be helpful if they're the type of person that actually will honor it. And that doesn't mean that they're a good person. It could be that they've got some major law violation that's already on their record, and if they get one more thing, they go away for a long time. That might be enough to keep them there. Or they might be super concerned about their image, and that might be enough to keep them away. But I'm curious, when we do like the question and answer, I'm curious whether or not you think that anybody that is willing to go to the point of strangling would actually honor a protection order or a stay away order, or whatever the different other names for those are. So I picked out a couple of different articles, and I'm not gonna read them all by any means, but in Psychology Today there was an article called "The Most Concerning Sign of Domestic Violence" by Dr. Joni Johnston. And in it, she said there's one risk factor that stands above all others, which is strangulation. Batterers who strangle their victim are more likely to engage in other extreme acts of violence. And what she said that I found particularly interesting was there's a message in strangulation that says that there are no limits that he won't go to, and the odds are that he's willing to kill. Like, if somebody goes to that extent, that is so extreme that they are telling you effectively, I will kill you. I'm not concerned with anything else, really. Yeah, I agree. It works on someone who has something to lose. I agree. WTHR is a news. WTHR 13 is a news outlet. The WTHR news outlet, or something before that? Oh, I was agreeing with you that Donna, I was agreeing with you that it works. Protection orders work on somebody who's got something to lose. I agree. And that might be the deciding factor right there, like more than anything else, because everything else could fall into that. Whether they want to save face with their family or their friends or work, or they've got some criminal violation that's going to send them away to prison for 20 years or whatever. But whatever it is that's important to them that they have to lose. I think you're right. The WTHR13 is a news thing, and they did an article that's called "Manual Strangulation is the Biggest Sign Domestic Abuse Will Turn Deadly," experts say. And this has a bunch of good information in it, in my opinion. According to the San Diego-based Training Institute on Strangulation Prevention, a woman who suffers a non-fatal strangulation incident with her intimate partner is 750 times more likely to be killed by that same person with a gun. This says with a gun. I could have sworn I've read before with a gun, so I might have to double check that because I've used that statistic before. But this is non-fatal strangulation. It's saying they're way, way, way more likely to die by this person if they've survived a strangulation before. And a lot of people do. 70% of victims who were strangled believed that they were going to lose their life during the strangulation. And indeed, death can occur in under 5 minutes. Loss of consciousness can occur in less than 10 seconds. When I was still with my ex-husband, before I left him for good, I stayed a couple of months after this for different reasons, but he pushed me through a thin wall and pinned me there. And I don't really know what his plan was from that point on, but one of his friends happened to be there, and he came over and was trying to talk him into letting me go. And he let me go and grabbed this guy, this friend of his, by the throat and choked him until he passed out. And that gave me the opportunity to get away and get out of the house and call the police. And it's scary. I didn't know if he was going to survive, and I didn't know if I was going to survive. So strangulation, it's scary. Also in this article, it says back in December of 2020, Beacon of Hope spokesman Jackie Bowman told 13 News the center's advocates saw more people facing some form of domestic violence since last year, which at this point I don't feel like anybody is surprised by. Maybe they are, but 2020, we're in lockdown, more domestic violence is happening. We've seen a remarkable increase, and not just in the number of calls that we get, but the complexity that we get. And he said that requests for protection orders were up 148% since 2019. But they also gave a couple of other statistics. Incidents of stalking and harassment were up 66%, while domestic violence incidents where the victim was strangled by their abuser were up 212%. And that was kind of mind-blowing to me. But it makes sense because it's an easy way to control your victim, particularly when you have to be in close proximity, when you're stuck together. So, and then the third thing that I wanted to do was cover, this is from the Domestic Violence Hotline, which is an amazing resource, and I love them and I use them often. They say strangulation is a significant predictor for future lethal violence. If your partner has strangled you in the past, your risk of being killed by them is 10 times higher. So if you've survived a strangulation before, you're much more likely to die from them. Whether you listen to that statistic, there's a study that was done that said 7 times higher. And then I'm not sure what the study was that got this 750%, but regardless, you're significantly more likely to die, and to die by this person if they have strangled you in the past at any point. That is the key. Strangulation is one of the most lethal forms of domestic violence. Unconsciousness may occur within seconds, death within minutes. And I wanted to share this because I didn't even realize this before doing this research for today. And this is not my first go around with strangulation, but I guess I missed this. It's possible to experience strangulation and show no signs or symptoms at first, which If you get a hold of law enforcement and say, hey, I've been strangled, then they're going to look for physical things. And of course, redness and bruising and stuff around your throat or your neck, that's significant. They can also be looking and should be looking at your eyes because the pupils change and the blood vessels in your eyes will burst from lack of oxygen. But it's possible that you can show no symptoms at first but die weeks later because of brain damage due to lack of oxygen or other internal injuries. So you can be strangled, survive it, feel like, okay, I made it through that. That was scary. Whether or not I filed a police report, whatever, but we're going to move forward, and you can die without having any warning, even as a result of that strangulation. So for this reason, they strongly encourage you to document the abuse also because, I mean, when you're dealing with the crisis situations of abuse and the stress and trauma, then details get fuzzy anyway. And then if you add brain trauma onto that, that makes it even harder to remember all of the details and not have conflicting stories. So if you can document your abuse, it's strongly advised to do that. But you also need to do that in a way that is not going to put you in more danger. So if you're stuck in your home and you're not able to get out, that can be really difficult. If you are able to get out and you can keep that somewhere else, that would be my recommendation, depending on your situation. They also strongly recommend that you would see a doctor if your partner has strangled or choked you, so that you can screen for these other things that you may not be aware of is even a possibility. And we want you to stay alive. So, and then I just thought I'd go over, because strangulation is very serious, symptoms of strangulation. Sore throat is really common. Having a raspy voice is also a common thing that police can look for if they know to look for that. Because if your windpipe's been crushed, or if there's trauma that's been inflicted on this part, then your throat and your voice will be affected. Difficulty swallowing, neck pain, hoarseness, bruising on the neck or behind your ears, discoloration on your tongue, ringing in your ears, bloodshot eyes, dizziness, memory loss, drooling, nausea or vomiting, difficulty breathing, incontinence, so not being able to hold your urine, a seizure, miscarriage, changes in mood or personality like agitation or aggression. That is common. That's typical of brain trauma. And actually, the incontinence, it used to be believed that people would pee themselves because they were afraid to death. Like, they were so scared that they couldn't hold it in. And that it has since been determined that actually that's when a person dies, then their muscles release and let go. And so it's natural when any human dies for them to pee and sometimes poop. That's normal. So what they have discovered is actually, if you pee yourself when you've been strangled, you were just on the verge of death. It is not a fear response. It's actually a biological response that your body was letting go, because it's that big of a deal. So be aware of that. Also, changes in sleep patterns, fainted or lost consciousness, depending on the situation. But I think that people deal with strangulation a lot more commonly than is reported. One of the things that I read said like 43% of attempted murders from domestic partners include strangulation, and like 45% of completed murders by intimate partners involve strangulation. That's almost half. That's significant. I remember that name, the Chad Wheeler. I'm gonna have to look up that case to refresh my memory. But yeah, If you strangled her more than once, that's scary. I mean, and we have all kinds of reasons for staying or talking ourselves into staying, but if you get to the point in your relationship where they're strangling you, you need to figure out how to get out. Super scary. Do you have any questions? Like, I figured the last part of this we'd just kind of do question and answer. I have a couple of questions. Donna and I had talked before. There's a couple of other people on here now. If a person has been choked by their significant other, do you believe that a protection order would be honored by that person that had done the choking? If you want to weigh in on that, we talked about that a little bit. Wow. Did he go to prison, Donna? Like, he should have gone to prison. But should and are not the same thing. When I was looking through these police reports, I didn't single those ones out because I would rather do that when we're talking about protection orders and violations, or maybe even stalking. But there was one couple that was there repeatedly over and over and over again because he kept violating protection order in these different ways. There needs to be more done than what gets done in those situations. Yeah, that was something. The Rajay murder suicide. Rajay or Ray J? I think it's Ray J. Pretty sure that I said it wrong. That's the hard. Well, that's not the hard part. It is a hard part doing this. Is I'm gonna screw up everybody's names. But if you're not familiar with the Ray J case, he shot his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend, to death, and then traveled 30 minutes to his ex-wife's house and then killed her and then killed himself. But he did a Facebook Live in between, like before he got to his ex-wife, admitting to the first killing. And then he cut the feed for the live, like as he was charging his ex-wife. It was, at first I didn't get to see, I only got to see part of that video, and then I got to see a little bit more of it after I did that video, and that was revolting. I'm glad that I didn't put the rest of it in there to be able to see him charge at her, and he was just so calm about it. Like, it wasn't even a thing. And I don't remember if I talked about it in the video or not, but their daughters were in his car when he killed their mother. But I'm curious because obviously she didn't give them to him. Like, he came directly from, as far as I understand, shooting his ex-girlfriend, and then came there to shoot his ex-wife. So did he kill his ex-girlfriend and have his daughters present then too? Or did he just make a little pit stop to pick them up? I can't imagine that really being a thing. And if that's the case, and then he took them, like, he had them with him when he killed his ex-girlfriend, took them with him to kill his ex-wife, I wonder if he didn't have it in his mind he was going to kill them too. And just for whatever reason changed. He didn't say that, but I don't know why he would have had them with him otherwise in that event. If he was interested in keeping them safe. Yeah. Donna says she thinks that he had the kids with him while killing his ex-girlfriend. I think you're right. Whether they were in the car or they were in the house, the police reported that the girls didn't see him kill their mom. But gosh, how traumatizing. I can't imagine. Other question that I had, I got like 10 minutes left that I can be on, is if I was to create a course I would like to create a course on Teachable around intimate partner homicide, like the risk of it and what to do if you believe that you are in danger. Because when I was, when I first became aware that my life was in danger and I started trying to research this stuff and find this stuff, it was really difficult for me to find information in the first place. I had to do a lot of research that a lot of people aren't necessarily willing to do. And then knowing what to do when you validate the fact that you are in danger can be difficult. So I would like to create something that's just easy for people, but I'd be curious to know if you guys have thoughts on what would be a good thing to have in there and what wouldn't necessarily be needed. Uh, Interesting. Well, I just learned how to remove comments. I need to look into how to block people on here too. I'm new to streaming, live streaming, so I'm learning how all of this works. There's so much that the news does not report about cases like that too. Yeah. Yeah, they get on a lot of times, like immediately after I will put up YouTube videos, they'll get on and put their porn links or whatever on there, and I have to go in and delete them because they're stupid. Thank you. I appreciate the encouragement. I really feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I've kind of looked at like different structure of videos and how and structure of resources and how to best utilize what I got and how to best get information out there. So I'm always learning, but I really feel like I survived a bunch because I'm supposed to be a voice. So I was looking recently at some other true crime um, sites, not sites, true crime YouTubers, because I think that that's kind of the umbrella that I'm going to fall into, but true crime focused specifically on intimate partner violence. And their stuff is so different because they're so about entertaining people with it. And there's no mystery for the most part in the stories that I provide because they're just the intimate partner, which is the point. Like it's not a murder mystery, ooh, fun, but I don't understand how people can feel that way and how they can present that way like it's fun when it's people's real lives and real murder. That bothers me. So I'm glad that I'm in a different area. Yes, you can email me. I'll type it. It's staff@aprilhardy.com. My keyboard is loud because somebody spilt something in it, so the keys stick, and it's annoying. But that would be great. I'd love to hear from you. Is there anything else that you want to talk about for right now, Donna? Otherwise, I think I will go ahead and get off. Nobody has any questions. I'm going to go pick my son up from work here in a few minutes. But you can email me, and that can be as long as you want. So we can visit a whole lot more there too. And I appreciate you being on. I appreciate the other people on too, like very much. And I will, put this back on later so that other people can watch it. I might see what I can do to edit a little bit. We'll see. But it's been a fun experience. Thank you very much, Donna. I appreciate it a lot. You made my first live good. I appreciate it. All right. I'm going to sign off for now. Take care.